It's set the stage on why this is important. What the big picture is here as you introduce yourself and think of the people.
So, hello again to those of us that were here for the morning session, and to those that weren't. I'm going to super quick introduction and background. I'm on Wall Street for 27 years. Ex-Lehman Brothers, 20 years as a securities lawyer. Co-founded a data company 11 years ago called Batafin. It's a data aggregator and integration platform. Retired from practice 2 years ago. Started a multi-family office 4 years ago. And an advisory business to support our portfolio companies 3 years ago. That's kind of the shortest background I think I've ever given. It is. I have been investing in and involved with mobility, particularly data-related mobility, for a very long time. And mobility tech and mobility-related solutions are incredibly important for reasons that I know are obvious to all of you, whether it's from ESG concerns to using mobility-related technologies to reduce our carbon footprint, reduce carbon emissions, improve transportation solutions. We heard on earlier panels about these large-scale projects being built here in Ohio with Intel and others. It's problematic that workers cannot get to and from these new locations efficiently, cost-effectively, in an affordable way. And so since I think I screwed up the prep call, I'm not in a position to give everybody's background. So I'm going to pass the mic, ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the conversation. And John Maxwell from Wejo is supposed to be joining us. He will. He's on the phone with our strategic investor. I can't say who it is because we're not all under NDA. But he's proposing around the financing, which is more important than sitting here with me. So I'm going to play the role of myself as well as John Maxwell. I think we also had Richard was supposed to be here for one, but he couldn't make it. So, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'm Ryan McManus. I'm the founder and CEO of Share Mobility. We're headquartered here in Columbus. My role in mobility is to try to help get companies provide transportation as an employee benefit. I've done over 4 million miles of safe transportation. I'm excited about the automotive industry's shift from motors to mobility. And I'm interested in seeing how you can get individuals that are not part of the automotive industry today, they don't have reliable transportation, they can't afford cars. How do we get them into mobility? How do we develop solutions for them? So excited to share what we've learned today.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Joe Kolek. I am president of Advanced Mobility Solutions. Advanced Mobility Solutions is a newly constituted business unit of the other TRC Technical Rubber Company, not Transportation Research Center. But we're an 84-year-old company whose legacy is entirely in service products and manufacture products for every major tire manufacturer around the world, including Michelin, Bridgestone, Goodyear, Continental, Pirelli. We're a global organization. AMS was constituted as a result of some of the things that Ryan mentioned. We're actually located, pretty interestingly enough, about 2 miles from the new Intel facility in Johnstown, Ohio. And when we get into some of our discussion, the implications of our organization are rather significant from many facets, as well as the community. We've been working with the city of Johnstown, which might what we call Albany East now, we put together a mobility hub working with Drive Ohio. AMS was constituted in an adjacent marketplace to our 84-year legacy in tire wheel service products. And then we're a commercialization partner with new technologies, working with people from Duke University, data scientists in Silicon Valley, and other folks for tire monitoring solutions that play into things like sustainability, safety, and other facets, because tires are the second largest consumable next to fuel of any commercial fleet. We also are looking to commercialize other modalities of mobility. One of the things very interested in is vertical takeoff and landing and the implications around that as well. So we're in, I guess, all facets of this.
Super. Thank you, Joe. My name is Randy Cole. I have no relation to Joe Cole. I know we look like brothers, but The last two panels has been a little bit of, this is your life for me, and I don't think anybody in this room is old enough to remember that, and it's only because my wife and I play Jeopardy every night that I know what this is life is. Because a TV show where you flash back through somebody's life, and, I love hearing about Midwestern modesty. I've never been known for it. I love hearing about Ohio leadership, because I've always been close to it. And when you talk about third frontier, that goes back 5 government administrations to Governor Bob Dad, right? And yet it's still a program that's in existence that's supporting entrepreneurs and business development in our state. Jobs Ohio, I did have the good fortune under Gates administration to be part of the state controlling board that helped create Jobs Ohio and privatized our development services agency, which was great. And we did it, Zach, with my good friend Jay Hottinger sitting 2 seats next to me. So I was one of the folks that helped do that as a representative of the administration. And then at the end of my time in Casey's administration, we created Drive Ohio. And Ohio really has become a hub for advanced mobility. We have great companies like Bright, which I'm an expert in residents supporting their entrepreneurs. I've had a crazy career of being 10-year cycles in private industry as a sales marketing executive with First Energy Corporation. I worked in the State House and the State Budget Office. Then I was the state, worked in the auditor's office and was the director of the Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commission. And then I've run technology startups and technology companies. So every 10 years, I seem to go back and forth, depending on where I see my gifts best being used between business or government, trying to push the ball forward. And I'm excited about this panel today because we are at a great point and because of the collaboration, I think in the last panel, I finally heard the word I was waiting for, which was collaboration and this idea of the new angel network, right? A network of networks. But that's part of that Midwestern modesty, being able to work together and say, okay, if we work together, we can get more done. I do have a couple questions that I was asked to ask this group. So, Mark, in fact, I have one for you because prior to this, I did work in a blockchain company. So I have a specific question for you. But I think our first question is supposed to be what scares and excites you the most about what you're doing, what your company is doing right now in this area of advanced mobility.
Well, let's see, that's scares is an interesting word. Things that concern me regarding mobility. One of the things that concerns me, I'll share with this group, we're talking about higher education, is in our core business, we manufacture. We have a 35-acre manufacturing facility again 2 miles from Intel. It's designed to run 3 shifts. We can barely staff it now. And it's only going to get worse. And so that's something that is a daily challenge for us, is to find workforce to take what we move into what we call traditional manufacturing. We coincidentally, we actually won the President Award for Excellence in Exporting twice because we export our products all over the world in 165 countries. So that's a big challenge. Specifically in mobility, one of the things that concerns me is the rush to electrification. And that's a multifaceted thing. One is the infrastructure or lack of it here in the US, or even globally, to support the requirements as we move to electrified modalities of mobility. And then there's also the other thing, is the minerals, the chemicals, lithium. One example of how lithium is extracted in long-term environmental implications of lithium. So, that's one of the things that concerns me as well regarding mobility. The other thing I mentioned, I don't know how familiar you are with vertical takeoff and landing technology, but it's here, it's on our doorstep. Tavistock and Orlando and public-private partnership with 5 airports, and they're going to work with a company out of Germany called Lilium, transporting people back and forth from the airport to theme parks in a 6-passenger electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. So it's on our doorstep. So the reason I bring that up is really now all of a sudden we're going to have these aircraft. Another one's Jetson for $90,000. Any of us in this room can buy a vertical takeoff and landing apparatus that we can take from our home and fly wherever we want. It's the FAA regulation and things like that. So, that's pretty exciting, really, those types of things. The evolution of mobility is one of the things that excites me. We've got so many opportunities to change the way that we different one.
So I'm really excited about government's understanding of the connection between economic development and transportation. Ohio's a great example. And you can look at, New Albany, where they're attracting Intel and 10,000 new jobs, and that's putting a lot of pressure on the existing businesses. And so Share Mobility, we have bipartisan support for commuter benefit tax credit that's being submitted for the Ohio transportation budget. And this would be a first of its kind program that will incentivize companies to provide charter transportation to their employees as a benefit. We see long-term this being a step up that will allow us to get to scale, and ultimately the private sector will be able to fund the solution without any ongoing government support. This is an issue that we really couldn't get anybody to pay attention to before COVID. And the companies that are now writing letters of support for the local politicians are the same ones that told us 3 years ago that they weren't interested at all, that their employees didn't have a need, and that they didn't value their workforce enough to pay for this benefit. But the tables have really turned, and companies are really understanding that for them to be able to reach the workforce and be located in tax-evaded areas, they're going to need to start providing that employee transportation. The thing that I'm concerned about in mobility that no one's talking about is loans for car repairs. That makes us all concerned that it's an early indicator that those who have a lease who are trying to build vehicles still on the road can't afford the repairs of those vehicles. The new vehicles being created are going to be out of their means, and that's where sharing really becomes essential. And so it's today, 17% of our workforce doesn't have access to a car. As the cost of transportation goes up, that percentage of the workforce that doesn't have it will also go up. And it's an opportunity for employers to step in and provide that as a benefit.
So with what excites me selfishly as an investor is just the unbelievable landscape of opportunity to invest at various stages in the mobility space. We're invested through family office in several aviation-related businesses. One of them Mark likes to talk about is called Verijet, which also has a long-term VTOL plan. We have looked at, and I just looked at another business plan that was put on my desk 2 days ago for a VTOL project. I probably looked at 30 of them in the past 3 or 4 months. So I'm excited about having the opportunity to be part of it, frankly, to make money. It's the end of the day, our job, helping to address the problem. What scares me is the complexity and the depth of the problem. I mean, in the few minutes that the three of you gave sort of what scares and excites should be a really good indication of the complexity of the problem. There's no single solution to it. There's no private only solution to it. There's public-private partnerships supported by legislation, supported by thoughtful governance that's required to help solve the problem. And also full disclosure, my better half is co-chair of the engineering CPA, which is the New Jersey Transportation Improvement Authority. So I have to, whether I like it or not, hear about the trials and tribulations of what it means to serve on a body like that. That's publicly supported. It's an NGO. Yet, the government, state and local, turn to them to help understand solutions. And I think you sort of simplified it best. And you said, we need to have a better understanding of the fact that it is a very fundamental barrier to economic development. If people, you can build, and sticking with New Jersey as an example for a moment, because that's part of my home state for me. You can build all the Amazon fulfillment centers you want. You can build all the technology and innovation centers you want, whether it's for green tech or liquid cooling for the Circle Farms, which is another business that we're invested in, or whether it's biotech and pharma, which Jersey is famous for. If people can't get to their jobs, right, then what's the point? You really haven't created this level of economic development. And what you've done from a tax perspective is the wealthy will continue to live in Far Hills or continue to live in Bedminster, and then they'll drive to that Pfizer facility, what have you, and go back home, not putting any money where it needs to be from an EDC perspective. And the regular rank and file workers can't get there. So love the opportunity set, scared of the complexity of the problem, no simple solution.
Thank you, Mark. I was with your transportation secretary, Diane Gutierrez Sacchetti, which I think is the most New Jersey name ever.
It's up there.
It's up there, right? It's, I mean,
This number of ballots.
it's, you gotta be up there. So with what you just said, Mark, going back to Ryan, and then I want to go to Joe in a minute to talk about where the rubber hits the road. I had to say, to understand more, and he gives his answer, I asked my question, but, Ryan, can you talk about the complexity? When I was a kid, and when I had my first job, right, I already admitted that I'm old, and I go all the way back to that administration work, so you back that. But you, like, one of the things that was on the intake form was, do you have a driver's license? Do you have access to a car? Reliable transportation will get you to work. Between those days and today, what is the challenge of getting workers and communities workers to where the jobs are? And how are you going to solve it?
You know, so in an effort to treat people equally, in the job application process, we've ultimately started to not really treat it fairly. So companies are not able to know if an employee owns a car or not. That's financial information. So the legal way to get around that is to ask, do you have reliable transportation? So every job application starts with, do you have reliable transportation? And that taboo nature of the question has made it so that employers don't even think about it. They don't want to collect the data. They don't want the risk. So the way that we've approached this is, I know with very high likelihood whether or not an employee has a car based on their home address. And I can predict that within very, very high likelihood. What we are able to do is then go and introduce transportation solutions to individuals that we know are likely to have a need, and then we go and invite them. The last thing we can do is put out a survey to say who needs transportation, because it's basically like asking somebody to say who's poor, who can't afford to get here. Nobody will raise their hand for that. So what we've been able to do is kind of create this inclusive service that feels a little bit private, that you get invited into by your employer. And it's not branded as something that's for somebody in need. It's kind of branded as a premium benefit. And that changing in position has allowed us to get something adopted where for decades carpool was shit. Nobody wanted to do carpool. Nobody wants to do carpool today. And so in a way, we've rebranded it and we've empowered the HR department to get beyond that question of, do you have reliable transportation? Big picture is our software platform will integrate into an HRIS system, and we'll know based on where everybody lives, how everybody should be commuting. And so a company with $1 billion in payroll is spending between $150 and $250 million a year in post-tax commuting. They could provide that as an employee benefit for 50 to 75% less and create a really differentiated workforce. And so by getting companies to start introducing it and get employees to start thinking about an alternative to driving, and within 5 years, we were able to get every company to offer this, every single member of the workforce would be introduced to a new alternative commuting. And that doesn't interest any of you, and I'm not trying to convince any of you to change, but there is a percentage of people at the companies that you own that need transportation, and your children and their children will think differently about transportation. So it's kind of a generational evolution where we're just focused on the small percentage of the market that has a really great need. And as more and more of the market moves from car ownership to car sharing, that's where we will be positioned to take a lead, because we own the employer. And we're going to be the ones to be the answer of how we're going to do work. It's going to be shared mobility. Thank you, Ryan. And I think you just pointed out an important distinction. When you talk about share and our understanding of how share works, it's a business to business opportunity. It's a business to business relationship. You're not just another Lyft. You're not just another Uber. You establish that HR system, you get the data, and you coordinate getting workers to work, not just random trips. That's great. That's great. So Joe, I already teased, you mentioned that tires are the most consumable part next to fuel in vehicle travel, especially with fleets. I joked or teased with where the rubber meets the road. I've got 5 kids that have t-shirts that say I'm just a kid from Akron, so I'm allowed to say that anytime I want because we've earned the right. But specifically, we're talking about advanced mobility and ride sharing and the technology behind it, connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles.
Let's get back to how does tire health, how does understanding and automating the processes around that help address sustainability concerns, environmental concerns, operational concerns within fleets? Get into some specifics of how does that happen? Why is that important to the science?
Thanks, Randy. I'm kind of harking back to our Appalachian team. Right now, we're involved with Drive Ohio. And Drive Ohio has a rural autonomous driving study underway right now in 31, 32 counties that are being Appalachia, 32 counties in Ohio. And what Randy is pointing out is when you think about everything that's riding on your tire, and we have an autonomous vehicle, an unmanned vehicle that's being driven by an individual person. Monitoring those tires is really critical, even if it's a manned vehicle. There's approximately 10 to 15,000 people killed every year by tire blowouts. Commercial vehicles are especially prone to this. So we're commercialization partners, I mentioned earlier, to come up with different sensing technology that looks at tire health data. And so we're collecting things like pressure, temperature, tread depth, load. We're also looking at uneven wear patterns on tires and things like this. So it's massive data capture, data collection. And these systems also have the ability to notify fleet owners and operators, as well as obviously people who are monitoring unmanned vehicles. The big acronym we're all using is CASE, right? Connected, autonomous, shared, and electrified, which are the new modalities of mobility. So the ability to better monitor these tires is a big safety issue, preventing blowouts, catastrophic tire failures. The other thing is reducing the consumption of tires, because through better monitoring, you're maximizing every last safe mile out of the tire. Additionally, retreading is real, and you see those gators on the side of the road. Actually, University of Arizona did a study. Those are not retreaded tires. They're as much original equipment, first generation, as they are retreads. So retreading is really critical to our environment, as is reducing the consumption of tire. Every tire has pounds of natural rubber, gallons of petroleum. It also has gallons of water. It has kilowatt hours of electricity and CO2 emissions to manufacture that tire. So every tire that can be saved really does drive sustainability and ESG initiatives and quantifiable ESG metrics as well.
I'm going to call him.
Okay.
Yeah, well, he has a technology that some people in the room have been backing, which is to deal with used tires, so they're not just sitting landfills.
Hi, I will introduce myself, but I do it again. My name is Vital Sipun, and I'm the CEO of GTC Technology Corporation. What is special about our company, we have developed and patented the first method for the upgrading recovered carbon black, which is retrieved from the old tire to the quality, so you could build the entire tire. For information, for people who are not familiar with the tire industry, each tire contains about 30% of carbon black. Carbon black is a product developed from the natural oil and gas. And the development process is very dirty, produce a lot of pollution, and takes energy. And also it's produce some carbon footprint, as carbon footprint. For example, to produce 1 kilogram of recovered of the dirty carbon black, you produce 2.3 kilogram of CO2, which is significantly environment. So with the ESG movement, most of the consumers of the tires, not manufacturers of tires, they committed to the goal of replacing of their feedstock, their raw material, the carbon black, with recovered carbon black, which is created from the old tires. In this case, the footprint is going to represent about 80% reduction of the pollution of the CO2, and pretty much zero pollution on other particles in the environment.
And you're going to produce your first plant in Ohio.
we are planning to have a plan in the high, potential partner, which is, Angelini Group, which is, in the western Pennsylvania. We met them at Canton, there's a Dan, and, this is very good match. We did some mutual testing, technical testing, very compatible technologies. The results, we upgraded their product. They have so-called deeper immunization product. It's not pure pyrolysis, I would say pyrolysis on steroids. So it's kind of peppermint. And we took their product, upgraded using our technology, and then sent them back. They tested the result. The result shows much improvement over what they produced themselves, and the quality which is appropriate to be used in the manufacturing of new products. But tires is not the only place. It's any type of rubber industry. So we also have big traction in Europe and with the large car manufacturing. So with this, we are looking at several opportunities, and our goal is to be a global company.
And these 20 investors. Once again. Thank you. All right, so we're talking about tires, we talked about the shared mobility and the changing nature of what mobility means, and how to make it more equitable, how to help with job transformation, getting people to work. Mark, back to you. Let's work our way back out to the cloud. We're beyond. I know one of your expertise is in other digital assets, alternative data, crypto, blockchain. What role do those technologies have in this advanced mobility transformation, right? Whether that's EV, advancing connected vehicles, but those types of systems, those types of fundamental technologies, how do they fit into making this happen?
You threw a lot of asset classes in there, so I'm gonna leave crypto aside for purposes answer. And there's elements of blockchain solutions that could be applied, but at the end of the day, it's gonna come as a surprise to no one. It's about the data, right? So if we don't understand with precision where mobility solutions are needed, how they're needed, what times of day they're needed, how they're going to impact the environment or improve environmental conditions, how they're going to impact or improve traffic flow, emergency response management, congestion conditions, and I don't want to play the role of my better half on the transportation authority here, but it's all highly relevant. But like with anything in this world, you can't make an informed decision if you can't deploy a plan for the implementation of any of the solutions that we described without understanding the problem at a granular level. So that's why the first, quite literally from a timeline perspective, the first thing I got involved with, the first thing I invested in was and are data-related businesses. And Wejo, which is not on the panel, but it's not, which I know some of you have heard a lot about today. It's part of the reason why we're as excited about the company as we are. They're the leader in connected vehicle data. They license the data that comes from connected cars, black box. Any car manufactured, most cars manufactured in the last 7 even 10 years are connected in some way, shape, or form. The more recent ones are more connected than others, but they're all generating data in one way, shape, or form. And internet connected cars, or most all modern cars, the amount of data that they're transmitting is absolutely remarkable. Every turn of the wheel, climate control changes, obviously geolocation, the condition of the car, from warranty related issues, maintenance, et cetera, what's going on the car's containment system. So this data is being used currently by different transportation authorities. We're in talks with NJDOT and other members of New Jersey. We're already selling it, saying we and the Wejo had on for a minute. Already selling it in Texas and other states that are using, well, there's John, that are using this data to improve the transportation system, improve access to mobility solutions. So I love what I'm hearing from all my co-panelists, but you gotta start with understanding the problem at a granular level, and I'll let you introduce John.
John, I'm gonna both have you introduce yourself. Name, rank, serial number, right, your title, your area of focus. But with what Mark, if you heard Mark's answer, what he was just talking about, I asked him about that and advanced technology, which of course is the Wejo expert. I was just at a transportation conference in Indianapolis last week, and a speaker there said, there are three types of vehicles on the road today. Not connected, partially connected, which is part of your answer. Not connected, partially connected, and totally connected. Can you explain those buckets a little bit more detail and tell us like how many cars when we're driving down the road fall into each of those buckets? Okay, don't forget, you gotta give us your name and everything else.
Right, okay, sure. John Maxwell, I'm CFO of Wejo, and I'm based in New Jersey. My company Wejo is based in Manchester. And I think Mark has already probably to this, so I won't go into that. But you know, we started collecting vehicle data a few years ago. Richard Barlow, back in Wejo, we had sponsored 21 races back in 2013-14, having sold another successful data oriented business. And realizing that data is all of vehicles and race cars and race drivers are improving their performance based on data. And also built a Wejo business with that concept originally. General Motors was the pioneer in terms of beginning to use connectivity in vehicles with the on start. And General Motors is our first full relationship. So that's what closer to the we have worked with General Motors almost from the beginning, but certainly since about 2018. And started a few years ago that on using their data in a lot of time. To the question before, vehicles, other vehicles, generally speaking, connectivity began to happen in 2012, 2013. We're talking about vehicles before that. There's data off of vehicles, so people were able to connect data in the shop, in the repair shop, where the places to play. That's telecommunication unit on board, which transmits data constantly, and whether it is to a company like Wejo or EM or to the infrastructure, there's a communication with infrastructure cities. My cars, for example, I go down West 57th Street in New York City, I can see the traffic lights and whether they're going to change from there to there. So that's where the future is. That's one street. But eventually we'll get to where cars communicate with and that's where they're at. So in the in between is kind of where most companies want to be. So they can collect the data, not as sophisticated, but there is something else. So cars more than much more active than first.
Thank you, John. Kind of keep everything on time today and allowing for full discussion. Questions from the audience? Anybody in any of these areas that we've been talking about? That's some creating us an explanation, but is there anything on your mind that you would like any of the panelists to discuss?
Maybe you can ask a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, we're getting to that point in the day, Mark, that the brain can only absorb what the seat can endure.
Probably it's exposed to cocktail.
That's right. We're in the way of somebody's cocktail or craft beer.
It's a terrible lead into a discussion about driving ability. That's
Right.
That's why you want to be a passenger.
That's
Never try.
and even full disclosure, the category of TMI, I did not have a driver's license for like 10 years. I was living in New York City. When I got my place out in Jersey recently,
I had to get like it. So that was an interesting experience, but I'm much better as a passenger, very good driver, but I'm much better as a passenger. What do you all think, and like keeping it quick, because Mark is gonna give me the wrap it up in just in a minute, with anything, particularly a problem as complex as this, is going to be an evolution, an evolutionary solution. So think of like those old, the evolution of man, things from our science books back in school. But how do we see the solution evolving? Is it, shared traditional gas power to shared electric to autonomous electric and gas power to VTOL? And I'm sort of, I don't think that is the evolution, but I'm trying to illustrate what do you guys think from your perspective the evolution will be towards this? Because I would like to know that, because I'd like to know where to continue to invest in this space. So I'll start with you.
So I think you really need to watch the auto manufacturers' recent investments into manufacturing of ICE vehicles and the depreciation timeline for those facilities. The automakers have such a control over the shift to these new technologies, right? And autonomy won't happen until electrification happens, and electrification won't happen until we have a proper grid and we have the automakers able to manage the full supply chain. And they've got significant investments made in gas F-150 plants. And so, as I look at Share's future potential, no one's making a Share vehicle. So we're really dependent on the automakers recognizing a multi-passenger use case that's going to have a very large volume that they want to make the investments in that supply chain and manufacturing. But I think you just look at what the automakers are doing, not what they're saying.
Very good. Yeah, and I would add to that, I think competitive environment, in the auto space, but also in the technology space around the ecosystems of mobility in general. As technology evolves from the perspective, I mean, we look at the impact Tesla has on the space, and where now everybody's in electric vehicles, all automotive companies going within a hard level time of business to thinking about how to use data, how to use technology and software. So the world is evolving rapidly. I like to think society will shift as well. So things like car sharing, our kids are doing things differently than we did. I personally love driving alone in the car, but I think that the next generation probably will not love this.
I'll try to build on some of that. Tesla's already built the car that can drive autonomously. It's built, their business plan is to be a shared vehicle so that, I can order a Tesla, it shows up at my house and picks me up. So it's really the manufacturer, but it's really the infrastructure. Route 33 in Ohio is the largest connected corridor in the United States because it has the ability for the autonomous vehicles to communicate to the cloud effectively. So I think part of it is going to be getting the infrastructure. It's going to be LiDAR, it's going to be cameras, what's going to allow for autonomous driving. So there's a lot of things that kind of need to converge. And then the other thing, the unknown, is the vertical takeoff and landing. Where is that going to play? And that's going to have a huge impact, I think. But right now, it's hard to really understand what it's going to be.
It drives me crazy when moderators get into the space of the panelists, but you ask such an intriguing question, I feel like I should. And I've got two words, and it's not plastic, my boy, it's niche markets. In each of these cases, it's the niche market. Autonomy across the board, is not realistic right now, right? A lot has been, but controlled spaces like airports, shipyards, facilities like that. Electric vehicles, in the case of what Ryan's doing, where it's a fleet, and you're going to get 50, 60,000 miles. You flip the dynamic on total cost of ownership from an ICE vehicle to an electric vehicle. That it's understanding those niche markets, eVTOL, the same way. We're not all going to want to buy Jetson's vehicle necessarily anytime soon. However, there are specific use cases. And I think if you're looking at investments, making sure the business case behind it, they understand the market they're getting into, the real market potential, and it's not overall, right? It's not the broad whole passenger vehicle market. It's not the whole commercial vehicle market. It's what specific use case, what problem are you solving? And if they can be first to market to do that, I think there are great investment opportunities out there.
I'm going to play Phil Donahue.
Yeah, just want to make one comment here. So as the industry is moving towards the electric and autonomous vehicles, those Eagles will still use our cars. In other parts, it will remain the only non-sustainable portion of the automobile.
This question back?
Well, I was gonna comment on the niche markets. On the niche markets comment, and we're still, many generations away from parents wanting to put their kids on a bus with no bus driver. Bus routes, in our region, where I spoke to, where we need to have much greater access to public transportation, our control, exactly where the vehicle's gonna go at every time. And strikes me as a, incredibly near-term opportunity for exactly what you guys are discussing. Thank you so much. It's really interesting.
Yeah, my takeaway from that transportation research center visit. I mean, who has been to the transportation research center? Yeah, that was, I guess we're all under confidentiality, we realize tonight, click the buttons, but the amount of investment that's going in and the crashes are not about, usually it's about the human error still.
94%.
Right.
By the way, Mark, I just realized that we have almost 8 minutes left, because,
Yeah.
you put a lot of time on this panel. Thank you.
For you.
Well, thank you very much. What do we do, this just came to mind, is we're sitting here talking about innovating and supporting innovation, advanced mobility, investing in space, putting wonderful technologies forward. What are we doing about the fact that our infrastructure, the roads and bridges and the things upon which all these wonderful connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, sustainable tire riding vehicles are falling apart? I go across the Kosciuszko. I was actually sitting in traffic coming into the city Monday morning to bring my daughter back to high school in Manhattan, and we were on one of my Jersey mates will tell me what bridge I was on just before you come through the last exit on the toll booth headed to the Holland Top. Anyway,
The old bridge
no,
on the 1-9?
yeah, let me say yes. So I'm sitting there in traffic and we're literally feeling the bridge bouncing and swaying. And she turns to me and says, "Bridge, and I said, I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm pretty sure that might be problematic." And if you look, any of the New York City bridges, like they're literally crumbling and falling apart. So what is that an impediment to the advancement of all these wonderful mobility solutions? And if so, as industry participants, what do we do about it? That's a jump.
I jump ball, but as a former road guy who had to pay for those budgets, and pass those budgets, and fix those bridges. We did 60 miles of connected vehicle technology on the Ohio Turnpike. We were the first in the Midwest to light up that kind of a section of roadway. And when we did it, we looked at the operational use case. 10% of our budget went to snow and ice control. And the joke in Northern Ohio, was from November to March, every car in Northern Ohio was what color? White, because of the road salt being dropped. And I understand public safety, I'm all for that. But if the bridge isn't frozen, if the roadway isn't frozen, why put the salt down? It's worse for the environment, it's worse for the motorists, and it's expensive. It's really, really expensive these days, especially when we start getting salt shipped in from other parts of the world and the prices were skyrocketing. But by looking at curb speed warning, road temperatures, what our vehicles were doing, why were our drivers spreading salt? Did the rotor get jammed? I know these are really in the weeds answers, but if you look at the real use case and you say, wait, we can start to use this technology to save the money, to put more money into fixing the potholes, more money into fixing the roads. And the same thing with widening infrastructure, right? Nobody likes getting stuck in traffic, but almost every one of these technologies we're talking about allows you to get more traffic through the same infrastructure faster and safer. The cost of motor vehicle crashes in the United States is billions and billions of dollars a year. 2.3 million injuries, 50,000 roughly deaths per year. Insurance companies are paying for that, transportation officials are paying for that, the public's paying for that, and insurance companies are paying for it. If we can improve the safety, you have more money in the economy for other things, right? Because all of that money I was talking about, all it did was try to get things back to normal. didn't improve a damn thing, right? It's fixing guardrails, it's fixing, cars that are broken, keeping people from getting to work. So I think it's, again, back to, I said niche markets before, but I think it's business case to use case, making investments that are wise and have an ROI on them.
I don't know if there's anything else to say.
So this is just something I think that investors should be looking into. Look into corridor projects. So Columbus has 2 or 3 major corridor projects. It's called Link Us. So we complain about we don't have the public transit infrastructure, and land use decisions are often made out of context of public transit. What corridor projects are doing is they're trying to take urban areas and combine land use, public transit, and economic development. And if you can invest along these corridors and place businesses along these corridors and residences along these corridors, that's going to get government support to run BRT, light rail, and other public transit through those corridors. Public transit increases property values. And so that's some alignment that's happening that I think is going to hopefully improve.
I'll build on one thing, and, we were working with Licking County and the city of Johnstown to build a mobility hub. Very big in Europe. A mobility hub is where all these modalities of mobilities converge, kind of what you're talking about. And my belief is that the mobility hub is, and we're building one in Chicago, Lincoln Yard. Anybody familiar with that? And so I believe what you're going to see is just shopping centers and malls proliferated, where modalities of mobilities converge. It's going to become the new epicenter of where we live our lives. You're going to have dry cleaning, grocery stores, hair salons, go down the list, because that's where people are going to get their mobility, and that's where they're going to converge.
It sounds to me, John, that a lot of what Randy was talking about applies to you.
Yeah, and actually the data is something to talk about from the perspective, but the data, whether we're talking about infrastructure, whether it's
Reducing salt consumption, weather data is something we don't talk about a lot, but
yeah,
we know actually a lot.
we have access to all the data, and we manage the current. So we know exactly when your water is moving, and therefore you can immediately water rain or water. Yeah, but there's an enormous amount of data that goes to the environment, make everything work much better together. We're talking about AV a minute ago. One of the things that the whole AV environment needs is not just vehicles talking to each other and computer each other, but actually having a knowledge of what's happening in the entire area around. And that's where our data has to can really be perfect knowledge of the environment. So it's technology of all this, whether it's all global data, it's a huge impact on everything we're doing. And it's smart governments. I hear all of you talking about what we're doing for Ohio. It sounds like we have a very smart government who is taking advantage of the fact that infrastructure needs to be upgraded and really upgraded.
Well, one question. You mentioned like 60 miles of something highway connected. What is that? Is it just a nice road or?
No, so we lit up the Ohio Turnpike is 141 miles long. The middle roughly 62 miles, has roadside units tied to edge technology and a Cisco system. And then we put onboard units in each of the maintenance vehicles on the roadway itself. And then it's subsequently established pilots with Ford, Horizon, and others as they're developing their onboard technology to be able to work with us. We hear about not just one vehicle, but a system of vehicles, or it's called V2X, the vehicle to infrastructure technology. We have that in place. And I'm just one bragging moment, since that's against Midwest standards, but one bragging moment. We spent a little over couple million dollars on the system, but because we're still working through the DSRC and 5G transformation in the country, the switch, all of the infrastructure is in place, but how things communicate with the vehicles, we can switch out all of that technology for under $60,000. So millions of dollars of technology system, but depending on what happens, what the FCC does, where telecommunications go, we could be 5G or the SRC with really just keeping out everything. And like, that's the kind of forward thinking that keeps you from spending too much money. I used to keep the Betamax, I know I'm really old, but I used to keep the Betamax in my office, and I said, you know, VHS and Betamax, everybody said Betamax is better, but no one bought it, right? We can't invest in a Betamax if no one's going to use. So I think that thoughtful expenditures on government part is a big part of making sure this infrastructure transition can happen.
I feel like this should be its own summit in some ways, and we'll do that. So thank you. We're going to transition to energy. Thank you. Anyone, we're going to focus on more of the tech than the drilling.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.